Hi, this is Manu Parpia and Startup Diaries. This is a series of podcasts in which I will talk to some entrepreneurs to see how they face the problems and what lessons can be learned by other entrepreneurs who face the problems of starting up, of scaling up, of exiting, and so on. I hope you enjoyed the series and I look forward to receiving your comments. Thank you. Last time we talked about the need, whether there is a need to change the management or change from founder if you want to scale up. Now, I thought it would be interesting to see whether different paradigm, whether you don't want to scale up at all. And if so, what you should do and what you shouldn't do. And why would you not want to scale up, and is it perfectly okay? So with that, I'd like to introduce Sandeep Kulkarni, an outstanding individual who's into business consulting, but he was a techie at heart at start, and now he's into business consulting and doing pretty good for the last, I think, 10 years or more. Maybe it was also because his wife is rather an entrepreneur too. But anyway, with that, let me introduce Sandeep. And Sandeep, maybe you could say a few words about Miracles.
Yes. Hi, Manu. Thanks. This is a wonderful opportunity to connect with you on this platform. So, yeah, in Miracles, it's actually been now 17 years that I left Geometric and started off this consulting. So, mostly focusing in two areas. One is various kinds of leadership coaching and strategy and vision related consulting. And we were chatting, it is focused on organizations and people and helping them to transform. So that is what the real motto of Miracles is. It actually stands for transformations in people.
I see. So how big is your organization, Sandeep?
Well, so, I have myself, who's the main, what shall I say, the
whole and soul.
Whole and soul. And then there is some administrative staff. There are one or two assistants. And then interestingly, there is a virtual organization, if I may say that, like a network of consultants which I use. But if you see, there aren't any consultants who I have employed in this organization as such. It's mostly me driving it whole and soul. The normal, the non-consulting jobs are kind of delegated, but I am directly doing things myself.
So why didn't you want to scale, and what do you think are the dangers of scaling?
Okay. So, if I have to answer, I have to kind of go back as to why I started this in the first place.
Yeah.
So it was kind of, I was going through an introspection phase, and I kind of rediscovered or discovered my passion. It was a newfound passion, I would say. And it connected a lot of dots for me. My interest in working with people, my interest in leadership, my love for theater and the arts, and all of this somehow seemed to converge. And then, it somehow clicked to me that, okay, this is what I want to do. And so I was actually also deeply interested in, transformations of people. And, you can see that in theater, somehow, that is what happens, there is some plot and people transform. So it was very close to my heart. And in the latter part of my job, I found that that's what actually I was doing. While there was a business, most of my work was related
acting.
Acting a role, or inspiring people to take on certain roles and change their own mindset, thinking, and apply themselves. So this is what I thought I really wanted to venture it, and I started the business actually so that it will give me a platform to study this more, to apply more about this, and allow myself to express in this. Okay, so really dabble a lot with how the mindsets and thinking of people impacts their personal lives, professional lives, the business that they are engaged in. And I said, okay, let me just create a platform for myself to work in this area. So that is how it started. And somehow, the scale wasn't really a goal at that time, I would say, for me. And when as I went more and more further, I found that, actually I started this whole thing because of the passion that I had for the work that I wanted to do. And if I took on the scaling, as an objective, then I was wondering, what is the thing that I would do every day in the morning, when I get up. I'm a very strong believer actually of passion. When you were working at Geometry, so much passion. There was a group of passionate people, and it was driving, and that was really something which I'm very deeply connected with. So every day in the morning, when you get up and start doing, what is it that is there on your mind, and what do you want to do? So I realized that since I had created this platform to be able to do all of this work, if I went into the direction of thinking about, okay, how do I make this bigger, then I will have different kinds of problems on my mind, and it might not be that engaging or that exciting for me. So that was one of the thinking that I mean I really wanted to apply myself. As I mentioned, I'm actually really an artist at heart, I would say. So if you would ask an artist, okay, would you want to perform your art, or would you like to set up an organization where many people perform their art? Somehow my preference was to perform. Okay, and it has been a fabulous journey. I found that so many different ways I could express, figure out, and apply myself. And I was kind of, I'm more like a depth guy, I think, more than a breadth guy. Though I learned a lot about breadth and I understood a lot of it. But I was also intrigued. I can correlate with one of your previous episodes. I was going through Shaily's, episode, and he made a very intriguing comment that scaling is boring, and I kind of resonated with some, not all of it, but some part of it. Scaling is a lot about meticulous execution. You establish something. Yes. Establish something, and then you repeat it, and then you magnify it, and that's how you go on. But I'm more inclined to not so much to that meticulous execution, but more about conceptualization, and that is what connects better with me. Even as a playwright, I wrote a play, and then we performed a show, and then many people said, "Hey, it was a great play. Why don't you go everywhere and set up so many shows? It'd be great." And somehow I was already kind of going on to the next play. So it's not so much about doing that established template and repeating again. So that didn't connect well with me. So those are some of the things. And I would also say that, yeah.
So I think the point you made, and it resonates with me, that scaling is boring. Now, when I say boring, it's not really boring, but on a scale of starting and solving a problem, I think scaling is focusing on details and execution and so on, and not on coming up with new areas to go into without first finishing, or at least learning how to scale and execute on your existing area.
Yeah.
So now, how do you help an organization then? See, because when the organizations you're helping,
right,
they are trying to scale,
yes.
And you're saying you don't want to scale. So how does that work?
Interesting one. And see, so that's why I said that I only partly resonated. Actually, the scale is interesting. There are different kinds of problems to solve. I just didn't want to do it for my organization. So many organizations which I actually am consulting and working, they are scaling, and I'm helping them to scale. And there I found that I'm kind of looking at their scaling at a little in a little abstract manner, not doing the scaling myself, but figuring out on the whiteboard about what are their scaling issues, where are the problems. So that gives me a lot of kick, actually, honestly. So it's not that I'm recommending to organizations that you also shouldn't scale. That was a personal preference for my own organization, but there definitely, because I see that there's so much potential, and people have and organizations have. So I'm helping them, and there the interesting thing is I get to solve the problem, but at the same time I don't have to do the part myself. There are people who come back. I can conceptualize it for them. we can figure it out, and then they go back and experiment and come back. So yes, and in fact, the interesting thing is that the kick of getting the scale, I kind of get through those clients of mine, and there are some organizations which I very closely and very deeply work with actually.
So it's interesting that you yourself don't want to scale,
Yes,
and yet you can help organizations scale.
yes,
The
yes.
kind of which shows perhaps the consulting is not such a bad thing, that if you can really help someone scale. Because most of the time people say consultants just listen to you, and only thing is they take what you've got and then rewrite it in a maybe better manner.
Yeah. No, part of it is true, I would say, but it's not only that. I would say that's a very small part of what consultants do. I think it is about you listen to what the organization has to say, internalizing it, and then exploring and making available a lot of different possibilities. Again, it goes back to my theater thing. It is, suppose somebody has written a role, and an actor is not just playing that role. He internalizes that role, takes it on fully, and then puts it up a lot more, much more richer manner. So I see it that way, and yes, it has to resonate with who they are. First of all, I cannot just put something out of, but you can actually, as a consultant, add a lot of value, show them different possibilities, demonstrate to them where their thinking probably has reached the glass ceiling, or is limited in some form, and open up their minds in many ways.
So not it's interesting that if you're saying they're not scaling, you're helping organizations scale. But I suppose one of the reasons you're doing this is you don't want to teach anyone how to help organizations scale. I mean, like, how do you transfer? I mean, if you had 3 consultants, you'd have to see that the other 2 aligned with your thought.
Yes.
Right? I mean, and your approach.
Yes.
And this you avoid by doing that, by having yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I experimented with a few. It didn't happen there, but I don't say that it will never happen. It might, that's if I really connect with somebody who is fully aligned to my philosophy, and maybe it might happen. But I'm not actively pursuing that. Is what?
Correct.
I'm saying.
Yeah. So, and this was a conscious choice you made, or is it something that evolved in the business? I mean, when you started, did you say, I didn't want to, I'm not really looking for partners and more people with you?
Right. Like I said, it started with, my passion and creating a platform for myself to express. And somewhere, I mean, I was just reflecting as we were speaking that to me, to scale or not to scale is actually not the question.
Okay.
In the sense that it is about you pursuing what you truly love to do. And in that journey, if scale comes on, fine, scale. If scale is not really, coming up easily, then that's fine as well. So that is what I would say that. So, this, I didn't really, damage too much with whether I want to scale or whether I don't want to scale. That way. So I don't think.
So one thing I would, to interrupt you.
Yeah.
One thing I would draw your attention to, and I would like your thoughts on, that if you scale, you incur unsaid obligations, or unsaid or said obligations to others, other than your clients. I mean, you may be doing, and because then you have employees, so you have to look after the employees, their interest, their growth. And if you have shareholders, then you have to worry about shareholders.
Yes.
Their aspirations or their requirements.
True.
So when you don't scale, you don't have to worry about any of this.
Yes. And this is, I mean, good point, Manu. And I think somewhere at the back of the mind, I also had this, because somehow, there is, I mean, I didn't want to really go by, certain expectations that others had. Again, as I said, it was more a platform for me to explore, what I truly love to do. And I didn't want to get bogged down too much by, the expectations of the shareholders saying that, okay, this way, that way, or, so I wanted that freedom. I wanted to be able to express the experiments that I wanted to do, and that has enabled me to go into multiple areas of my interest. I mean, from a transformation perspective, since that's the focus that I have figured out transformation. Researched a lot on neurology, on psychology, on linguistics, on ontology, and then somehow integrating all of that spirituality and putting it together into leadership avenues. And I'm not sure whether that freedom I would have enjoyed had I different problems to solve or different people's expectations to honor along the journey. Maybe I could have, but I felt that okay, I rather apply myself here rather than in that direction.
Okay, so one last question, and if you have any for me, let me know. So at no stage you're saying when you started out, you considered for getting funding from someone, or you didn't, and you just said no, I'm not going to look for funding, I don't need it, and so on. What was your thought?
Yeah, so about funding, I would say I just found that I could do what was required to be done with the funds that I have. And actually, interestingly, we took on large projects as well. The consulting job doesn't require too much investment, I would say. So that was not required as an option. When would our funding be necessary? Only, when I decided, okay, all right, we need to scale, we need to have, let's say, a vision of having an organization of this size by this year or something like that. And now you need some funding. But since that was not really so much in the horizon,
on your priority.
So then the funding issue didn't come up much, I would say.
Okay, well, I think you had an interesting conversation. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, on the same topic, Manu. So, I really see scaling and not scaling as a very personal preference, honestly speaking. So, you have been an entrepreneur and, for so many multiple times. What has been your preference actually as an individual? Would you prefer to start off new things and then, hand over them to scale, or you really, see yourself more interested in scaling up yourself?
Well, of course, now I'm probably past the age of scaling.
Sure.
But in my period when I was active, I think scaling was important to me. And so you may recall that in, I think, 2004, which was 10 years after Geometric was founded, I wanted to, I said there should be a change in leadership. And we did a change in leadership in 2006. But I thought it was important to scale because my drivers were different and maybe your drivers are different.
Sure.
So my driver was I needed to create financial independence to myself, and I felt equity was the only way. And along the way, I thought I should create an opportunity for employees to make money without having to go to US. Now, if you remember, in 90s, it was the only way, most of the time, only way to make money was to go overseas and save money.
Sure.
And if we employees took part in the equity, hopefully they would also benefit and I would also benefit.
True.
That was my
driver. Yeah, we see that materialize actually. So many people have actually benefited by this vision of yours, and they have made personal wealth through this route for sure. Yeah.
So that was my driver.
Yeah.
Which was that initially required scaling.
Yes.
But I also, and that's why I thought it was interesting in the last series to point out that there is a time for a founder, if you are interested in scaling, to, I believe, 95, 98, 99% of the founders need to hand over to someone else.
Sure.
And when to do that is a moot point, and there's no fixed answer for that. But I think the important thing is to know that you should.
Yes, true. Yes. And when I'm consulting, kind of lead the organizations in this direction itself, it's kind of paradoxical that I'm not doing it, but I'm helping them.
Yes, I think it's really paradoxical. It shows you can stock one thing, do another, but
Yes.
then you and be successful at that.
Right.
Okay, Sandeep, thank you very much for
Great. Thank you,
the
Manu. It was great.
time, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thank you.